welcome back, everybody. It is still week one. I am still Emily Ray, and this is the 7 Deadly Sins lecture. This lecture came about probably a couple of years ago because I found that I was giving the same feedback over and over and over about little things that that are super duper important, and that if you get this stuff, you will have won the course. All right. So what I thought was, what would happen if on day one, instead of kind of like peppering this feedback out, throughout the month, every time I saw it, adding it in, what if on the first day when students came in, I said, these are the things, well, watch out, be on the lookout, apply these concepts and techniques in your work, and you will succeed in this class. And it has been night and day. It has absolutely been night and day between the work that I saw and the work that I see now. And so what I want to do is bring your attention to 7 concepts that are essential to developing content for the web and for an interactive medium. And here we go. The first one is to create meaningful links and launch them in a new browser window when appropriate. I'm going to give you some examples and explain this a lot more. But a meaningful link is one that is titled in such a way that it is descriptive of the content that you find when you select that link, right? So let's look at some examples here, right? So I call this the good, the bad, and the ugly. These are all, the color in red is intended to be a link. We'll just establish that. The first one says week 1 project. This is a good example because it lets me know as a user, if I were going to click on that link, that I'm mostly likely going to go to this student's week 1 project. The second one is a bad example because even though it's titled, click here for more, it is not descriptive of what I'm going to find there, right? Anything could be there. And click more, read here, read more, that's all very generic information that is not providing the user more information to make a decision on whether or not they want to click there, basically. Last but not, it's kind of spammy too, right? It kind of feels a little weird. And then the last I call the ugly is a straight up URL, http:// blah, 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 gobbledygook is what I call that, gobbledygook, right? This one you can look at, you can probably parse out, www.week1project.com. You might be able to look at a URL and see or make some sort of deduction about what you can find there. But who has time for that, right? Nobody. So thinking about user experience, who you're creating this content for, give them the information that they need to feel confident that when they click on that link, they know what they're going to find there. Let's check out another example. Who has seen a link to a Google Doc? Right? They usually take up about 3 lines of whatever screen you're looking at. I know that both of these links go to the same place, right? But the first one doesn't tell me jack, right? It's a whole bunch of gobbledygook. It's a straight up URL. That is an ugly example of a link. The bottom says example proposal. So as a user, I have a pretty good idea that when I click on that link, I'm going to go see the example proposal. Even though these go to the same place, which one gives you more information? The one that is meaningfully titled. All right, anytime I can, I like to bring this back to FSO because this is a platform that we are constantly working on as students and teachers, and we can talk about it in a meaningful way, right? So this is an example of a discussion board that I had students submit an assignment on. And as luck would have it, I got an example of the good, the bad, and the ugly. The first one you can see up there, the student says, below, period, your, period, mind, exclamation point. And the word your, as we can tell from the color, is the link, right? This is a bad example. He has given it a title. I'm using air quotes for those of you who are listening at home. But the word your is not descriptive of what this student has posted. I appreciate the attempt at humor here. Obviously, I am a funny gal myself, but this is a bad example. The next is from a student that says, here is the link to my week 1 practice project inventory. And we can see from the orange colored text that week 1 practice project inventory is the link. That gives me an indication of the content that I'm going to find there. It's going to be the project, it's going to be the inventory. Got it. Thanks for that meaningful title. You have helped me feel confident that that's what I'm going to find when I click on that. Then the last example, as we can see, is just straight up URL, gobbledygook, long, long, long. It looks like it's a blog post of some kind. It looks like it was in this year, and this is the name of the folder, and this is the file, and these are all the, the places and the subcategories that we'd go. But like who has time for any of that? So these are user experience considerations for you guys. I'm going to call you web strategists this month, right? In other classes, they call you media strategists. But this class, you're specifically thinking about who you're designing this stuff for and making decisions that help support them on their mission in this environment, right? All right. The idea of launching it in a new browser window when it's appropriate. In FSO, it's very easy to have your link open in a new browser window or a new tab, as they call it, just by selecting this little toggle button right down there at the bottom and hitting insert. Why would you open a link in a new tab? Okay, so you don't lose your current page and where you are, right? If you're staying in the same website, you don't launch it in a new window. But if you're taking me away from the place that I purposefully came to, launch me in a new browser window and don't take me away from that page that I purposefully navigated to. I will share my experience with you guys as an instructor. When I go into FSO, why do I go there? To grade, right? So as an instructor, I say, hey, you guys, I want you to post a link to your project here in this discussion board, and I'm in there because I need to launch all of those links, go to all of your blog posts, go to all of your sites, and look at what you've done. But ultimately, I have to come back in there, provide you some feedback and a grade, so I still need to be in FSO. If you post your link in FSO and it takes me away from FSO, you have given me poor user experience. You do not want to give your instructor poor user experience when they're giving you a grade, right? So I share this with you because I want you to be thinking about who is interacting with the content that you create, right? In this case, I am, as your instructor. You are posting that link for me and then ultimately for your other classmates who might want to look at your work. And just by making the simple consideration of having it open in a new browser window, you have done something that will facilitate a more positive experience for us in getting to your content. Right? So anytime that you're creating something, think about who's going to be using this, right? And how are they going to be approaching it and why? And you make decisions based upon that user behavior or those users' needs or that support them in their mission for what it is that they're trying to do there. All right, the second deadly sin is not using headings and lists. And so what I'm telling you to do is leverage headings and lists in the content that you create on your web pages to avoid dense paragraph text, right? So the web is an interactive medium. It's not like print that has a price tag associated with every page that you create. You could post content for days. You could make someone scroll for days. You could put content after content up there. But I encourage you to think about the fact that people don't really like to read a lot online. So how can I share this information that I need to share, but in a way that will get you to actually either scan it or absorb it or want to dig in there, right? And the way to do that is to think about what formatting tools do I have? And it's something as simple as leveraging headings, subheadings, titles, and bulleted lists. I'm going to show you an example. This is the same information on the right and left sides of the screen. The information on the left is in block, like dense paragraph text. It would take me a little bit longer to go through and read this information, but I've broken up the same text on the right-hand side with just headings and a title and a bulleted list, and you can see how much more easily the information you could scan. When people are online, they are busy. It's a task-driven, a task-oriented behavior, right? Like I'm checking my email, or I'm researching something, or I'm finding directions or a review. And so I'm sifting through information to find that one piece of what I need. Unless I'm doing it for like education or entertainment consumption, where I want to absorb every single word on this page, like I'm on a mission. As web strategists, design and lay out your content in a way to support me on that mission. And a way that you can do that is make your content scannable. Avoid dense paragraph text. This is an example of one of your activities in FSO. I think that this is your week 2 project. Yep. And so I want to show you what it would look like if I did not practice what I preach, right? When I'm creating content for you guys in FSO, you're my target audience. Right? When I'm typing up these assignments, I am thinking about, okay, like how can I make sure that these students get everything they need to meet all the requirements of this activity, right? And if I put this paragraph, this dense paragraph text up there, this is not scannable. This is not easy to read. You guys would get lost in it. You would feel overwhelmed, and most likely that would cause anxiety and for you to not like produce your best work. If I apply this idea of headings, subheadings, and bulleted lists to this is the same exact content with styling, it looks a little bit more like that, right? And you can see how just that simple shift in the way that I laid this content out on the page will help you guys when you are reading this activity. Let's say, oh no, I need to go back and make sure that section about the links. Okay, scan, boom, there's a subheading called links. I know that I'm going to read these bullet points under here to make sure that I have hit all of the things that I need to hit. And I've made it easier for you guys to complete this homework assignment successfully because I'm thinking about your experience. All right. Do not put text as an image. No pictures of words. Now this one, well, they all need a little bit of explaining, right? But here's the idea. The internet is an environment that can scan text. And we use tools like search engines like Google to find the things that we need, right? And we count on search engines to find results for our queries, right? So what was one of the last things that you searched for? All right, directions. So maybe you typed in an address and the city, right? And then there's some sort of functionality that matches up what you searched for with the most relevant results. But that happens because it matches the exact terms to the terms that they're finding on the website. If every website out there displayed that address information as a picture of words, that search engine's not going to be able to find that. I'm going to show you an example of how this works because it's kind of conceptual, and I'll share a few areas where I see this happening most. The reason why, first of all, that you wouldn't want to do this is usability. When you take a screenshot or a picture of words, there is a compression that happens to that text. It becomes an image. It becomes a collection of pixels in the shape of letters that then form words. And because of the compression of that image, we compress images on the web because smaller file size load faster on the page. It makes it a little fuzzy. Like you'll see that pictures of text, it's just kind of a little blurry around the edges. And for those of you who spend as much time on the computer as I do and at night feel eye strain because you've been staring at the screen for so long, having clarity within the things that you read are important, right? And by having text as a picture of words, you lose that clarity. And therefore you lose the readability and the usability. That is another user experience consideration. The other thing is SEO, search engine optimization. That keyword-rich content can no longer be found by search engines because the search engines don't recognize that as words. They recognize it as an image. Only our eyes can interpret that these pixels are now shaped in letters, and these letters form words and sentences and information. A search engine cannot do that. All right, so the places that I see this most in this class are, the first one is when we're working on this fictitious scenario this web building scenario that we're going to do over the first 2 weeks. It's for a company called Real Deal Tacos. And Real Deal Tacos is a food truck out of San Diego that serves Baja-inspired cuisine. And they have a menu that they want to share on their website. And instead of people taking that text and copying it and putting it into their web builder or their content management system and formatting it within that environment, that interactive medium, they will screenshot the menu, the PDF or the Word document, then they will take that picture and they will post that picture on a web page. That is what I'm talking about. The other area that I see it a lot in this class is when you guys will be working on your portfolio websites, right? A lot of times students want to include a resume. And traditionally, resumes are print documents. And when you are designing something for print, you can achieve pixel perfect design because the outcome is static. It doesn't have to be malleable to a cinema display or mobile, right? It's going to be printed on an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, and you can design it specifically in a rigid way so you can force how it looks, right? People like that. People like the certainty of how something is going to display, especially if they've attached, creativity or their own branding identity to this resume. So instead of putting that information, copying and pasting it as rich text on a web page and formatting it within that environment, they'll screenshot a picture of it in Word, and then they will post a picture of their resume. But no one's going to find them. You want to know why? Because Google is not going to see your name and the title and your work history and all of the keywords and the rich content that might connect you to a potential hiring manager, because that content is no longer usable. What would be a good workaround here is turn that document into a PDF and share a link to that, right? But then that also will take us down the rabbit hole of saying, well, wouldn't it just be easier to read those words on the page, on that web page, than clicking and downloading another document? Yes. So then you have the question about what is a better user experience? Is it better that my user has to click 3 times and download my resume and open it up to view it so that they get the style that I intended? Or the busy hiring manager who's just trying to find out if you have the skills needed to give you a phone call back? Would it be better if that information is 1 click away on that page? These are questions as a web strategist that I want you guys to be thinking about. This is a picture of the old Full Sail website, and it was funny, a couple months ago, I had a group of students who were like, oh, what month is this, and what month are we in, and what class comes next, and they pulled up this what looks like a table. And they wanted to copy and paste their schedule so they would know what class was coming up after which class. And the girl went to copy and paste it and realized, oh, it's a picture of a table. It's not an actual table. So it was really kind of a beautifully timed learning moment for her because she wanted that information to be able to be reused in a different way. She wanted to copy and paste it and make her own little schedule for it. But she saw how, as a picture of words, it uses or it loses the usability of that information in your ability to repurpose it in that way. Okay, I already said where I see it most in this class, which is in resumes and in that Real Deal Taco project where people screenshot the menu instead of typing it in or copying and pasting the information and laying it out in a visually captivating way. Number 4, in terms of these 7 deadly sins, this is the newest edition. It's something that it really has to do a lot with graphic design, but it translates in an important way here in web class as well. Jacob's not going to discuss it in the same way, but I'm going to show you some examples so that you can see how it's applied on the web and then how it would translate to graphic design. He just doesn't use the same language as I do. So I say observe inset padding. And I ask you to think about the breathing room that your content has when it is in any container on a website, right? So here's an example. I have a bunch of dense paragraph text inside a white container in the top box. but you can see that that text really extends super close to the edge of that container. It is kind of crammed in that container. If I wanted to give that text a little bit more breathing room, I would apply consistent padding around that table so that you can see, and I kind of gave it an opaque quality so that you could see, kind of see through there, that the dimensions are consistent throughout. And then I brought up that opacity so it looks just white, and you can see how this information in the box on the bottom is easier to absorb because it's not butting up against the edges of the container that you have put it in. The same thing goes for images, right? So in this one, the star is basically right up against the sides of the white there. I have applied a consistent padding around that image. It would look more like what you see on the right. Does this make sense for you guys? It's a small consideration, but one that I see ignored, especially when designers create sites in Wix. Right? In Wix, you're given a ton of options for how you want to manipulate the design. Content management systems like Squarespace and Weebly don't provide as many options, and they force you into better design, right? Because when you have too many options, there are too many chances for inconsistency and just for poor combinations of styles. Right? So for those of you who intend to use Wix for your website building this month, just know that this is something that I see more so on that content management system. All right, the next one to be thinking about is to apply color contrast for maximum readability. This is a simple idea, but again, you'd be surprised, how often we see examples that don't apply adequate color contrast. So here's an example I like to pull up. Can you read this? How about now? How about now? And actually there's a fourth one on there that says how about now? And you can see that that black text, the third one down, stands out the best against that white. That one is providing the best color contrast on the page. The red one also stands out pretty well. But also be thinking about your color theory. What is red communicating? Is that the intended emotion that you want to include with that statement? Is that color option that you have chosen to include at this point on the website consistent with the color palette for that business? Are you arbitrarily creating some sort of meaning out of the color that you've used, or does this have a purpose? These are all things for you to be thinking about with the styling choices that you make for the websites that you're going to be creating. The other thing I wanted to show you is how textures and patterns play into this idea of contrast. A lot of times I see people have very busy backgrounds on their websites and then just put the text or the content on top of that. If there is enough color contrast, or if the background's not incredibly busy, it might work. But many times a distracting patterned background or a high detailed image behind text or other images makes it more difficult to read, right? So again, you want to be thinking about your user. Sure, it might be cool to add a background image here, but if I can't read the text, like, your site's not working, right? Like, if I can't get the information that I've come here for, your site's not working. Think function first. It's got to work. It doesn't matter if it's pretty if I can't get what I need. Your site fails if I can't get the information that I came for. So when I'm showing you how placing text on top of a colored background or image here, I also want to show you what a potential fix would be. And that would be to kind of create a canvas behind what it is that you want to showcase. And you can see that I've slightly lowered the opacity of this white canvas so that you get a little bit of that texture. You can kind of see it popping through, but it in no way interferes with the contrast of these elements, and you can clearly read the information on the page. All right, number 6 is to mine the fold. This is an old term used in the newspaper industry to refer to the area on a newspaper, how it's basically 4 quadrants and it's closed and then folded again, and then that kind of a fourth of that area fits into a newspaper dispenser. And there was like a little window, right? So the most important information or news of the day goes on that area that shows in the window, because they want people to stop in their tracks and say, oh gosh, I got to give a quarter so I can find out what is happening in the world today, right? So the idea is that if you're minding the fold to, as this translates into web design, is the information at the top of your homepage is the most important news or information that you will share with your audience, right? So be thinking about this as kind of like a high value real estate area that you should be providing branding information, clear navigation options. You should be providing some sort of information about what the site is about. If there's something new that you want to draw attention to, that would be a great place to put it, because the area above the fold, which means before you start to scroll on the home page, is the only area of a site that you can be sure that a user will visit if they go to your URL, right? Because it's like that snapshot. Okay, it has loaded. There they have options, which could be navigate to the clear navigation options that you have provided, intuitive links. It could be scroll, but it could also be like, nope, and close the window, like close it all together and not go any further. So if there's something that you want to be sure that your audience sees, it needs to be in that high value real estate area above the fold. And it should be as enticing that people would want to click on other areas. All right. This is an example of the old Full Sail website. This was their homepage. Who is the target audience for Full Sail's website?
New students or people who are considering going to Full Sail?
People who are considering going to prospective students, right? This site is designed to get new students in the door, and they do that in a very effective way, right? Oh, I've got a scholarship spotlight here at the top. Oh, and look at this really cool classroom with all of this like great gear, and this guy looks edgy. I wonder if he'll be in my classes. And wow, the technology here is super. And man, this is real world education, and I can take a tour, and oh, this is where I can learn about programs. This is all information that I'm getting just from this snapshot of the home page before you scroll. Here I can see where I can go learn more about programs, where I can learn more about scholarships, where I can like take a look at stuff about the campus. It's a very clear path, and it's intended, this is designed strategically for prospective students. What is the website that is designed for current students? FSO is a learning management system. Connect, right? So you know how we're talking about content management systems like Wix and Weebly? Learning management systems are just another web-based platform that are designed to facilitate courses, right? And so there's certain functionalities that are tied to online learning, like setting due dates and rosters and providing grades and feedback and all of that stuff. That's what's contained in an LMS. And FSO is Full Sail's proprietary LMS, which means that it's custom built for these students. If you've been to other colleges, like community college, you might have used something like Blackboard, right? So Blackboard is another LMS, but that is not a proprietary one. It's like pretty universal that a lot of colleges and universities use. But Full Sail, like we like to do things differently here, so we make our own, right? The last one for these 7 deadly sins is an important one, and it is because I use the word relevancy on this slide. Woo-hoo! All right, give me the context to understand the content that you have put on the page, right? The best way that I can explain this one is through a story. And this I like to call the legend of Dan Tilley. Now, you guys are too young to know Dan, but he was part of MCBS like maybe 2 years ago. Smart guy, funny, he had a big afro, kind of like Sideshow Bob, right? He was very talented, and everybody loved Dan. Everybody wanted to marry Dan. They just thought he would be like the best husband. and super talented. And I worked with him on creating his portfolio website. He created it very clean, minimalist, because he really wanted his projects to shine, which is a smart thing to do for a portfolio site. And he put this video up there on this clean page, and I was like, ooh, what's this video? And I pressed play on it. And it is a video of Dan Tilley playing the mandolin, right? And if you don't know what a mandolin is, it's like a stringed instrument that's like kind of crossed between like guitar, ukulele, banjo kind of a thing, but it's like something you pick and you do different things. It's incredibly complicated. And here's Dan Tilley just like shredding on the mandolin. And so it's like, wow, this guy can do anything, like he's a super talented person. And I know this because I know Dan. But if you're a stranger and you land on that page and you press play on that video, what is the only thing that you are left knowing about Dan Tilley? That he can play the mandolin. And that is not what he was trying to tell you on his portfolio website. Because what he was trying to tell you is that he's also a rad video editor. He did all of the audio engineering for that. He had this cool cinematography, like different camera angles. He had re-recorded and timed the music to match the picking of his fingers in separate parts of the footage. It was masterful what he created, right? But we don't know that because he didn't tell us, right? This is his media communications portfolio website. And I get a video on the page with no context to understand the content that he is providing to me. Maybe just something as simple as a title. And, in this video, I intend, to showcase my skills in camera work, in editing, in audio engineering, and also that's me playing the mandolin, right? Another area that I see this, you guys, is in this class I ask that you submit all of your assignments in the form of a blog post. The reason why I do this is because when you're posting information on a blog, it's like you're posting it on a website, right? And I want you to be thinking about it as such. A blog is a website that just auto archives content based on a day, right? It creates a page that's based on a timestamp of a date and then auto archives that information. But fool you not, it is a website, right? All of those articles that you create are just different pages. You might not have it set up in your navigation to be able to link to those pages unless you're going through the archive, but it's a website. When I see you post things in your blog, I am getting a better understanding of how well you are interpreting the content of this class because I see how you're posting information in an interactive medium, right? If you make a blog post that has tons of dense paragraph text in it, I know that you're not listening to why you would not post dense paragraph text online. If you post a blog post that has a picture of words in it, I know that you have not paid enough attention to this archive about why you would not do that. Just because you're not putting this on a website for a client doesn't mean you shouldn't be honoring and observing and practicing these things in all of the work that you do online, right? So I want to encourage you to apply these things that we're talking about every chance you get. I'm not going to dock you on your blog post if there's too much dense paragraph text, but it is practice and an opportunity for you to showcase just how much you're learning. So back to the context thing, I have you post your assignments in the form of a blog. A lot of your assignments in this class, well, not a lot too, actually, involve watching a lynda.com tutorial and then a short one and then doing some small activity. And I ask that you post your lynda.com certificate and then whatever the deliverable is for the activity. A lot of times I will see students who just get up to their blog post. They have posted a certificate as a blog post. A certificate. All right, as your instructor, I know why that certificate's there because I have a knowledge about what you're doing, but your blog is a live web page that anybody can find, anybody can find. And so when they come to that and they just see a certificate, how are they supposed to comprehend why that's there, right? They don't have any context to understand what you share. This is an example of a really thoughtful student. And I mean, now in every assignment description and the requirements for the deliverable, I say, In your blog post, include a 1 to 2 sentence summary statement that explains the purpose of this activity and the content that you've shared. I have now put that language in every single assignment so that you guys do it, but this girl did it before I even asked for it as a requirement. She says, in this activity, I was asked to watch this particular lynda.com to get an understanding of basic principles on the web. The aim was to introduce concepts and techniques specific to the web and identify which skills I need to develop to support my career objectives here. It's not like rocket science, and I'm not asking for 500-word dissertation. I'm asking for 2 sentences that explains what the heck you're doing. Now, this is helpful to you guys in a number of ways, besides not driving me crazy. The other reason is, when you're creating this blog, you're creating basically documentation or historic archive of your journey through MCBS. Your ability to articulate your projects, your process, your choices in what you're doing is going to be so important and so useful to you if you take the time to do it every chance you get. Let's say in this class you ultimately end up creating a website for Real Deal Tacos that you love, right? And you want to include that in your portfolio. Well, if you go back to that blog post that you created in my class way back when for Real Deal Tacos, and you take a look at the reflection component that you wrote in there, like you already have a great summary statement. So when it's time to take that information and put it on your portfolio site, you've already done the work, right? You've already articulated your process, what the design situation was, what was given to you, the way you approached it, your unique solution, all of those things. So I encourage you guys to take the time, the extra maybe 5 minutes it'll take when you're doing your homework, to think about what you write there, because it will benefit you later on down the road when you're going back and thinking like, oh, well, I'm 2 months from graduating, and what have I done? Like, what can I put on my portfolio? This is a chronological archive of what you've done. Take time to make it worthwhile now. All right. Never forget. Legend of Dan Tilley. That's him, by the way. He cut his afro. And that was his mandolin. Does anybody have any questions about this information? As you can see, I feel very passionate about these things. And again, I will say that if you can internalize these concepts into the work that you do in this class, you're going to be in a really good spot. Also, I have recorded all of this information, and any of it that you want to review at a later point, I will provide these archives to you. If you're like, what was that she said about that thing that one time? You can have it. Any questions? Well then, nailed it. All right, thanks for your attention to this. Next up, you guys, just a really quick overview of what the heck we're doing here in week 1 in editing for the web.